I found a giant back there. See him? That's a giant. He's tucked away there. Because he's further in the background. Look at him. How y'all doing? I took a look at this classic week at Christie's London, and it's pretty cool. It's a virtual museum because of Covert 91. Pretend. They were all prepared, you know, of course. Not because they knew about it, because they're lucky, right? Well, it's fortunate for us. We're the lucky ones. We're the lucky ones. I should be back in school across the ocean. I went through this for your benefit, ladies and gentlemen, and I found some fascinating things. We're going to take a look, and I'm going to give my commentary on it. Okay? Here we go. In these paintings from the so-called 15th, 16th, 17th centuries of antiquity, I have to ask the question, why were they so in tune and in touch with antiquity? In the paintings, it looks like what we think of as biblical times. Here's a portrait of St. Thomas the Apostle, question mark. And he's got a square. He's holding a square. I don't see the compass, but he's got the square. What's going on? And could it be an actual portrait that was painted in his presence? Because the 1,000 years, just, you know, that dog don't hunt. Now look at the lack of erosion. I find it fascinating. And I also find fascinating, I think these are giants or something's different, because the trees, you know, it's not like they couldn't do scaling, you know. Did the bushes look like trees and there were no trees? Or were these people as big as trees? I mean, that guy who was half horse, he was, you know, proportioned. We're talking giants here. And I don't think they're just making that stuff up. But look at their proportions with respect to the cattle next to them and the trees. I mean, they had no idea about perspective. How could it be that no human being could paint for crap until 1600 or so, 1547 or something like that? They painted like children. Oop, TT alert. They painted like children. You know, they had some class, and then it was like only people coming out of whatever, Vienna or wherever the bastion, I guess it would be Rome or Naples, you know, they had to study under the tutelage of some grand master artist who's like, you know, when you draw a circle, you make it perfectly round. And if something is in real life, not as big as something else, and they're just as close to the perspective, then they should be about, you know, not the same size, but the thing should be smaller. So if the one further away, that circle would definitely be the same size, right? Now, what's above the head there? Like a floating chandelier light? Like what? I don't know. Oh, it's a halo. It's for religious significance and blah, 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 blah. Look at the column in the background sticking out of the river. And again, things are overgrown. It's after the deluge, but there's also quite a bit of, well, I'd say quite a bit, a lack of erosion. Not much time has passed since the deluge, my friends. Not much time at all. And people done shrunk over time pretty rapidly. Now, I think there were different sized people living next to each other. We see that a lot. But eventually they become rare and rarer. Excuse me. In the age of photography, when that officially begins, we see there are quite a few of these giants left. And I'll do another video on that because people love it. So here again, we see a depiction with people way taller. See how the railings are small? I've always kind of wondered, because there are these buildings built for giants and then the railings are small, but the railings weren't done like people, they're going to just walk and just fall off the edge. I think they may have been more careful. And then think about it, if you're that big, it's not such of a big deal. It's not such of a huge drop for you if you're that big. The railings didn't have to always be as high. These things are amazing. I don't think it's carved out of a solid piece of stone. I really don't. It's a 3D render. And they use some material called rendered stone, which I don't know much about, but I'd like to learn. I mean, who needs photography when you can 3D render something like that? And then when they found stuff going out in their adventures, you know, they would draw it. And there's always just wreckage, you know? The antediluvian civilizations, people are crawling around on these things. They don't know what that stuff means. They walk into these places. They don't know what the hell it is. What the hell? You know, it's huge. They just walk in. They don't know what to do in there. These, you can't even lift the lid off those pots, you know? They didn't know what these depictions meant of the scenes. I mean, look at this. Things wouldn't look that dilapidated unless there was some kind of a major catastrophe. It very well could have been submerged for quite some time, and then the ocean water recedes, and that's what's left. And then people just kind of build around it, build on it. It's not very useful to them. See how all the trees are kind of young and small here? There's few out there that are grown up, but I mean, that looks like a Roman Colosseum. Like, is this the rediscovery of Rome? Is that the Roman Colosseum? I don't know. I mean, it may be. People, we think of things as like we always knew what it was, but I think for quite a long time, people have this rediscovery process. I think some people knew. Look at the trees growing on top of these things. That's how huge that is. That's like Baalbek. That's the scale there. It's definitely antediluvian. The antediluvian giants were about, I'd say Adam and Eve were about 26 to 28 feet tall. And the whole race of the antediluvian people ranged around there. Some of them were taller. It gets pretty rare that you have bones or architecture that accommodates somebody more than 28 feet tall. But it's out there. There's evidence. And then, of course, it goes up from there because of genetic manipulation or whatever was going on that led to the Titans. And the Titans existed. The evidence is there. I'm not going to cover it in this video. We're just talking about, yes, that was Rome. Okay. The Colosseum, the Arch of Constantine, yes. There's the oldie Ladderline. Here's some fake news for you. Ye oldie fakey newsy. But look at the trees again. The trees are not proportioned to them. And then the people themselves, look how they are of different proportions. Now, did the artist simply not know? I mean, it does look a little childlike, but maybe it's not, you know? I don't know that I can draw much better than that. And the tree looks like a photograph, though, in a way. And, yeah, people are different sizes, and you can see how things were going back in the past, you know, more elegant, more refined. People wore less restrictive clothing. They just that's how I'd like it to be. You know, grow a beard, wear a toga, some sandals, done. don't mess with me, man. I don't need to wear anything over my face or anything like that. It's all restrictive bullcrap. And they were free, but they kept getting attacked by these assholes. The Phoenicians, or whatever they are, ruling us now. Oh, they're here. We know you're here, you guys. They're just right in front of us. They're our politicians. They are our rulers, the secret societies, the shadow government. Yeah, we know. You guys, stop being assholes. Okay, so there are these plaques. Oh, this was beautiful, these plaques. Take a look at this. Just gorgeous art. I don't even know if I could call it art. I mean, it's like... it's like a rendering. It's just so... It's better than real life. I mean, if you're going to do art, make it better than an actual photograph of something. Like the expression on the horse's face. Look at that. Just beautiful. And I'm sure in person, the deep blacks, because there are things like this at the local museum here. The deep blacks. They survived all this time, and it's so rich. Look at the expression on the horse's face. That's like me walking around, especially. Okay, so now look at this. This bridge. Look at the scale of this bridge. Look at the people. And the archway at the top. Why in God's name would you need an archway to be that tall at the top of a bridge? At the top. I found a giant back there. See him? That's a giant. He's tucked away there. Because he's further in the background. Look at him. Unless those are all children up on that bridge. And that stairway is super steep. And the gondoliers are really teeny tiny people. But other than that, then those guys back there, they're pretty much giants. Unless they're walking around on stilts. Doubt that too. Okay, so here's some bull crap. Now, I know this is fake. Or I think it is. I don't know if it's sold yet at the auction. Christie's auction. But it just, I can tell this is Disney, man. Whoever actually drew stuff for Walt Disney, if it wasn't him himself, or whoever copied his style and did a lot of the work, or it could be Disney himself. He, yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like Walt Disney stuff, and of course, it's all the bull crap, you know, and they have the globe there, which tells you right off the bat it's bull crap. It's about Copernicus and all those a-holes with all their BS crap that they're pushing for the Jesuits. Yeah, so they got the butt in your face. They're mooning you. I mean, come on. It's obvious, you know, and it's just so hokey. It's hokey, really. I mean, the colors are neat because they're copying the Greek style of the art. But here they're fawning over a globe, putting their hands on it, fondling it. Oh, it's a globe. Oh, their eyes roll back in their heads and they grab the globe right underneath. You know? Right on the underside, right where they grab the globe in the private part. You know where the globe's private part is? It's the part that says, this is for reference only, not to be used for educational instruction or navigation. And we're recording. Yes. So, okay. Somebody paid almost 40,000 great British pounds. I wouldn't have. I hope I'm wrong for your sake. Because he bought it, but I think it's a hokey. But maybe now it's worth something that I covered it in my video. Here's a chandelier. This is what I was talking about. I wanted to include this in the video about radio because the crystal radios utilize crystals and resonance. And when I look at this, not only do I see that these could be lights because of the... Yeah, it could hold candles, sure. But I see some electrical... components to it, and I have to zoom in on it so you can see it, but there are these little wires, and I don't think it's just structural, okay? There's some threaded attachments. I had some higher resolution photos. Maybe it comes up a little bit later, but yeah, I think it may have been a crystal radio or something that resonates out frequency, and you don't need electricity or much electricity to amplify a signal when you have resonance. If you think of it like the way that LED lights work, they're really bright, but only for a split second, and then they are dark for the rest of the time. That's why LEDs don't feel or seem as bright as incandescent, because they're not. Here's a giant against a lion. And did the artist not know? Hey, dummy, lions are bigger than that, you stupid idiot. No. Oh, they just make up some bullcrap that it's Hercules. Yeah, it's just bullcrap. And it might be, but I question it. So here you have some paintings I don't think are as authentic. Now, the lack of erosion is a telltale, and I think that part of it is true, but the size of the people, I guess this could be like us. So I would say it's more recent. This may actually be 17th century or 18th century artwork, but they make it look and they like the other stuff and they lump it in, but clearly these people are like our size. Look at them compared to the donkeys and stuff. And this may have been painted like after 1850, if you'd ask me. Maybe not this exact one, but things like this. Look at that janky bridge. Are you gonna be comfortable in that? Look at that. Is it driftwood holding that thing up? I don't believe it. There's no structural support. Oh, good. Here are the things where you could say, oh, that's wax coming down the side, but I don't know. I think that may be an electrical attachment. There were others like that. So, and then here, let's just build this fabulous, huge stonework castle. And then let's let it just kind of get buried in a mudslide. Let it get flooded by the ocean or whatever. And look at these steps. Yeah. Those steps. I mean, that's telling right there. These were for giants. These people they just came along, They just fell off the turnip truck, these people. Because look, think of the effort it would take to build that monstrosity back there. I mean, that's a person there. Look at the height of the doorway compared to these people. And it's all flooded up. It's all smashed up.
It's all smashed up.
It's on this hillside with every time it rains, the water's dark from the soil. It's just they're eroding like crazy. And look at this stuff how'd that dirt get up there, folks? Inquiring minds want to know, how'd that dirt get up there? What is that, melted rock? I don't know, man. I'm telling you what, something's off here, I tell you. And I question it. Yeah, these steps. And look, there's an archway right below the word steps to the right. That's an archway, yeah. Because that whole structure's under there, That's the second floor she's sitting on. Yeah, here's a better zoom. Look at that stuff, man. Well, they made the doorways that tall because they knew it would flood in. No. This looks more contemporary to me, but look at the door handle on that. That's been lowered. That door is way too big, man. Way too big. Everything's too big there. Look at that doorway. Well, we're going to make a door. Let's make it this big. The threshold that, is not even supposed to trip you up. It's sticking up so high. They got the carpet going over it. These people just came along later. If you can't see it, then you, my friend, are a jackass. Look at these. What is this device? I know it's a... I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything. I think it's a Islamic thing, but I thought maybe it looked like a technological device. You know what I'm saying? Fascinating. To me, it is fascinating. Fascinating. And here, they come up on Jerusalem, I guess. They just walk along. Hey, there it is. Now, Josephus said of Jerusalem that it was absolutely unrecognizable. And I think it may be the case that Jerusalem is actually in what we think of today as the American Southwest. It may be. So, classic week at Christie's London, they had this horse manure that showed how people started to map the earth. And the way they did it was, well, it's a globe, supposedly, but that globe doesn't bear any resemblance to anything that we are familiar with. It's totally off, for something being so accurate. And I think they just made it look like Saturn on purpose. But going back, this thing with all these different maps, that is, it's just the same Mercator map, and all they did was just have a fake expansion of how fake history says that people expanded and how they mapped things out. But it's just a farce, if you ask me. As are all these globes, and they just have these. Yes, they're old, but they hadn't invented color. They hadn't invented contrast. Therefore, you can't see what the heck you're looking at. Like, what are you supposed to do with this thing? It's just these blobs of varying shades and just these freaking swirls. And like, what is this? And a cat scratched it over here, and it's a scratch post, It's like a really crappy cat tower because the globe part makes the cat fall off. Like, there's nothing you can do with it. You can't even put it under your car. It's like a wheel. Now, this was way more interesting. This world map, I believe, may be one of the more accurate ones that I've ever seen. It may be one of the more accurate maps that I've ever seen in my life. Well, it's kind of made to look like a globe, but the reason I say that is the way I think the actual map is, it's not like the azimuthal equidistant. There's a solution for the southern latitudes, and I think I have it. And I'll reveal it in a separate video, but I'll just give you a quick summary here. The South Pole doesn't exist the way they taught us. It's something else. There is a southern node. Actually, there are two of them, at least. I think just two. And so if the north is the center, which I think it is, which is actually the cathode, the positive is actually the south, what we call the south, I think. I think it's reversed. That is, there are two, if you follow the magnetic lines. And so it's not exactly like the azimuthal equidistant. Obviously, yes, there's more land, but then things kind of stretch, I think. Even time and space may stretch. It's weird. I just have to show you. But it would solve everything. Now look at the top there. See on the top right, you can see the Hyperborean Quadri Island or whatever it's called. So the Hyperborean lands in the center, yeah. So I just kind of made that up. You know what I'm talking about. That's depicted. And so you have these, I guess, two views of the Earth. But I think it's been bastardized because I'm sure it's showing the same location for the South Pole. But what they show is the opposite side of Antarctica. That may be something that is laterally located. And then the way the longitudinal lines converge, they converge on the node, but it's not the same node with two sides. It's two different nodes that are located laterally, diametrically opposed. And there's the island of California, ladies and gentlemen. The island of California. And look at the Great Lakes. It's the Great Lake. And boy, that's kind of scary for me to say, because if it reverted, I would be underwater in the Ohio Valley. Okay. Well, as long as I live here. So now, here's another map. This one's a little bit more polished, globe rather. It's still total bullcrap. The lack of contrast and everything kind of helps them sort of hide how wrong it is. If you compare two globes next to each other, they don't really match. So that ain't science, folks. Science don't work like that unless the landscape changed, which it may have. That's true. That's true. The island of California is no longer an island. Obviously, there's been some major destruction out west. No doubt about that. And so, skipping ahead, there's some interesting books here. These are the ones that have like kind of childish drawings in them and of giants and things. Some of it's really great art and some of it's not. So there's a lot of BS, hokey, bullcrap, rewritten, Ministry of Truth crap like that globe just tossed in there. If the globe is such a perfect model of how our world exists, then why does it need to be held up by something off the ground? Just like what the flat earthers say, or whatever. I'm kind of thinking some of the flat earth stuff, just some of the doctrinal things like the azimuthal equidistant map are more suspect. I'm subscribing less. I'm getting back to where I'm backing off a little bit and saying it's different. It's not that easy. It is easy. It is an elegant solution, but we don't necessarily have it because it seems difficult to grasp. It's unfamiliar. And this is interesting how they're trying to incorporate these old maps, so there's some truth that has to be in there, and they show how there's a lot more land further north than what is depicted. Okay, so look at the price this went for. 70,000 to 100,000 pounds. That's a lot. Yeah. So a lot of people knocking around these old dilapidated megastructures, tearing each other's hair out, the slaughter of the innocents, massacre of the innocents. Great stuff. Yeah, wonderful. And then here's Mary with Jesus, and okay, she's a giant. I mean, the way they look there, how small their eyes are and how they're scaled to the antediluvian stuff they're hanging out on, that's indicative of them being something like 16 to 20 feet tall. So, yeah. And Jesus is chilling. He's reading a book. It's like, yeah, I already know all this stuff that I'm reading. But I'm just going to, because I got to pose for the camera, so, I'll make it candid because posing sucks. And I don't want to just be standing there looking like I know everything. So I'm going to be like I'm reading this book. And his proportions, like adults still looked like adults. That guy looks like Liam Neeson. But children, they're proportioned differently. And they say, well, the artists, they didn't know how to draw children. They couldn't proportion them properly. Well, I beg to differ. I think that's how the children actually looked. Did Jesus have blonde hair and a mullet? Probably not. I don't know. But maybe so. I really don't know. Or don't know. So, but yeah, that Mary looks kind of like a giant there. And in a lot of the art, she's depicted as a giant. Oh, well, it's allegorical. She's a giant in the world of Christendom. Well, okay. Yeah, but I pay attention to this stuff because why would everybody be doing the same thing? Well, they all came from the same school. Well, maybe, but why couldn't anybody else do art? Nobody else in the world knew how to do art except people in Italy at that time. I'm not buying it. Yeah, there's some Oriental art, but they did the same stuff at the same time. Assuming the times are even close to what they're saying, and there's some correlation there for sure. I'm not buying into the explanations that they have, but yeah. So this is outside of Jerusalem. Look at the tree. Look at the tree there. The leaves and everything. And then there's Jesus on the cross. Could it be? Because this is outside of Jerusalem. This is, I think. What's going on here? The size that Jesus is probably pretty, well, it looks kind of proportionate to that weirdo lion thing there. The man's face, like, weird, man. But then there's like a giant's live next. That guy'd be like a 38-foot tall dude, maybe taller. But I think that's just a decorative thing. I don't know. Or to know, because you look at this, that's not a kitty cat next to him. What the heck is that thing, man? It's Freakorama. And look at the lack of erosion. This is antediluvian stuff here, folks. They just happened upon this stuff. I'm telling you. It's all melted. Look at the melting. The great melting pot. Huh. Oh, crap. Is that why they call the United States the great melting pot? We're going to find out. I hope not. Look at the stairs. So you have a road, and you're going to make stairs. How wide do you make the stairs, and how big do you make the steps for people of that size and stature? Well, I would think that it would make it a little bit more accommodating than that, where they have to, at each step, they have to lean forward at the waist, put their hands there, and throw a leg up, and then kind of roll, and then get up from their hands and knees, and then go to the next one and just continue, Or they have to be like parkour experts or something to get up there. Yeah, what is that? Kitty? We don't bite our kitties. Is that it's not one of those allergy-free cats. It's one of those, it's like a... Oh, man. It's just a freaky thing, man. It's like, the Beauty and the Beast or something like that. It's weird. It's all weird. What's going on here?
It's rising number 2. Come, Mr. Bigglesworth. Mini-me, are you hungry? Something to eat? Not even a hot pocket? An Eggo? No, we don't gnaw on our kitty. Leave Minnie, Mr. Bigglesworth alone. Just love him, stroke him.
The dude's just got like a drapery around his waist, you know? What are you doing, man? And the leaves on the tree, I don't know. They seem pretty small for a tree like that. And those rocks sticking up, I mean, the lack of erosion, some of that stuff's going to fall. You don't want to be under it. And then they have crosses along the road. So this would be like, are those electrical poles? What are those things? I mean, seriously, it's something like, oh, well, we assume those are crucified people, right? But could it be that they just kind of painted on the crucified people and made up that story, and those were actually like power line poles? Because that's what they look like to me. Because who, in your right mind, you know, who's going to say, you know, welcome to my town, we have crucified dead bodies hanging on the way in and out? I guess like a totalitarian state, sure. Look at these structures down by these rivers. Well, they didn't have dams, right? So they had way more flooding. A lot of that could be used to explain the mud flood, except the lack of debris in the mud. And the fact that you wouldn't build where it would flood all the time, right? But here they are. They have these homes built right on the edge. Is the river currently flooded or not? I don't know. But yeah, there's some weird stuff going on with that. So, okay. So this is St. Jerome in a landscape. Well, they don't say where it's supposed to be, huh? Let's see. Looted by the Nazi authorities. Huh. Interesting. So what do we know about it? Flower of Lucas Gossel, St. Jerome in the landscape, oil on panel. Yeah. And, geesh, that's not, for something that got looted by the Nazis, being sold for 12 to 18,000 British pounds, that's not that expensive. It's probably phony then. I don't know. I find it pretty interesting. It kind of looks like an Oriental painting if you ask me. Like the old Japanese landscapes. Okay, well, that's it then. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. This is UAP. Try to support the channel if you can. If you can't, just like and share. And please come back and view my videos. Are so inclined, that would be great. Thanks again. I'm outie. Bye-bye.